Salutations, everybody. It is Maddie here today, your fellow weeb. And man, oh man, are we getting to some JRPGs today. So get comfy because this is my favorite topic to talk about. So a lot of people out there are Microsoft CEOs. I didn't know if you knew that. I see a lot of people in the comments and on Twitter just sitting there in their nice two-piece suit going, yeah, we're going to buy you, and we're going to buy you, and Microsoft, we're going to buy you too. And like a lot of people are saying Techland, Konami, Sega, the list goes on. Microsoft apparently needs to buy literally everybody on this planet or else they will die out immediately. I understand the rush of excitement. We just saw them lock up Bethesda. There's a bright future ahead with that. There's a lot of potential on the table with IP crossover and tons of studios. I get it, okay? But in this video, we're gonna narrow that focus and ground ourselves because yes, things are changing for Xbox and there's a lot of writing on the wall that indicates that. But I wanna ground it in reality and fact in this video here today. So we're taking a look at two particular partnerships that Microsoft is really honing in on, and they're both in Japan. And I think that's really important to notice because we've seen Microsoft, they tried when the 360 came around, they had Infinite Undiscovery, we saw Operation Darkness, Lost Odyssey. They did try to make a lot of exclusive Japanese role-playing games for Xbox fans. It did not catch on, but I think now that things have grown and we're starting to see Microsoft expand more, I think they're going to start to attack that market again. Now, why is that? Once again, writing on the wall. We're not speculating here. There are things happening within that ecosystem that Xbox is deliberately doing, and we will talk about that all in this video today. So, for those of you who are new here, you like Xbox, you like RPGs, you're in the right spot. Sub up. Let's talk about the future of Xbox because there's no question whatsoever they are going to make some type of acquisition within the next year or so. That seems to very much be the rumor, and it's one I would totally believe because actions are showing they're very hungry. And a lot of things are coming together now between Game Pass, Bethesda, a good game plan for the future. There seems to be a lot of things stitching together for Xbox. So I don't think an acquisition is out of the question, but what I believe, I'm going to emphasize that again, is happening is Xbox has really shored up their first party, right? They got Bethesda, so you've addressed stealth, first-person shooting again, because you also have Halo on top of Doom. You've got Wolfenstein in there. You've got role-playing games from Bethesda Game Studios. Now Playground's doing it with Fable. You have driving games. You have horror from Tango, also a Japanese studio. So yeah, I think Xbox has really shored up their first-party front. What you're likely going to see them start to do is attack the third party, where they're going to equal the grounding. What am I basing all of this from? Sega. A lot of people connect Sega to Xbox. I wouldn't be surprised if one day we saw them nab them, but I think what's more realistic is you're going to see Xbox work with them on a third-party capacity, maybe do something exclusive, but more likely you're going to start to see simultaneous releases on Xbox and PlayStation, because what's happening is you take something like the Yakuza franchise, all of those games, Kiwami 1, 2, Yakuza 3, 4, 5, 6, are all on Xbox Game Pass right now. So they are starting to harbor a relationship here with Sega, but it's not just Game Pass. We've seen Microsoft team up with a lot of people through Game Pass. They also exclusively got the next-gen upgrade for Yakuza Like a Dragon. That was a timed exclusive. Once again, indicating there is a partnership there. Even more so, Phantasy Star Online 2 was brought over to the West. Now, while that may not be everyone's cup of tea, that was a significant happening in the industry. That thing was stuck in Japan for a while, and it was Xbox who helped bring it over. This is an MMO that's only available on PC and Xbox. So to me, that is a very, very, very big deal. Last but certainly not least, a member of Sega stated, Game Pass, quote, helped propel the franchise to over 3 million players worldwide. That's a huge benefit of being on Game Pass. It strengthens the exposure you get to a huge first-party audience. That surge in engagement in turn helps us to further establish your product in the marketplace. It's great for us. It's great for consumers who get to experience something they may not have engaged with outside of the Game Pass model, end quote. This was referring to Sega's 2 Point Hospital, which launched on Game Pass last year. So Sega seeing the positives of Game Pass, just kind of like what Bethesda and Microsoft were really emphasizing, so there is some writing on the wall with that one. But we're seeing Yakuza, which was originally really exclusive to PlayStation, so much so that some people thought it was a first-party basis, but it was not. And while I know Yakuza is not this big popular franchise, although it should be, sadly it's not though, but the fact that Xbox is extracting those titles is very important because now we're starting to see them creep into other areas. Let's take a look at this clip from Phil Spencer here and some of his thoughts at the Tokyo Game Show.
Japan is a creative superpower in this industry, with iconic characters and games that are highlights in the gaming histories of hundreds of millions of players across the globe. Yakuza, Metal Gear, Biohazard, Persona, Dragon Quest, Final Fantasy.
So that was the Tokyo Game Show at 2020, and if there's one thing you noticed there, Phil has worked with every single one of those properties except one. One game that was mentioned in that list is not currently available on Xbox, and that is Persona. So this is a series that is, no kidding, one of my favorites of all time. It's one that, if you've been around here for a while, you know I am a gigantic fan of. So, of course, I'm itching to see a little Persona on Game Pass. We saw Persona 4 Golden get ported finally from the PS Vita to a new hardware, and that was the PC, and it did phenomenal there, selling 500,000 copies. And also, when asked about future ports, here's the kicker here. By the way, ATLUS, who published Persona, is owned by SEGA. They said, "We remastered Persona 4 The Golden, a title previously sold on the PlayStation Vita, and released it for sale on Steam this fiscal year. Because of the game's critical acclaim and its low selling price, sales are much stronger than expected," explained SEGA Sammy President and COO Haruki Satomi. "We will continue to actively promote porting previously released titles to Steam and new platforms. We are also negotiating with platform holders for new games in the future, and we're considering ways to sell under favorable conditions for each title. Among them are measures such as preparing PC versions of the titles from the beginning with multi-platform releases in mind." So if you don't like my own interpretation, there is Sega Sammy's president just literally saying, we're going to port more. We're going to explore new platforms. We see that happening now with Yakuza. I'm telling you, Persona on Xbox within the next year or so, do not be remotely shocked if this is something that you end up seeing happening. Whichever way they drop it, we're still unsure, but I imagine Game Pass. And that will be exciting. I think more than likely it'll be Persona 4 Golden first because they already have the PC port done. Maybe you could squeeze that on the PC Game Pass, but more than anything, the controller wrapping is there. And so getting it running on Xbox hardware, I think, is entirely possible. And this would be a huge deal because you look at Game Pass, you look at Xbox, they've got Dragon Quest, they've got Final Fantasy, they've got so many major JRPGs, and Persona is the one that is missing. And Persona on Xbox, that would be massive. I will make a video about that on its own.
The icing on the cake to really all of this is that ATLUS is open clearly to bringing stuff to Xbox. This is happening for the first time ever. So for those who don't know, every single year, ATLUS likes to collect a survey from their consumers. And sometimes they tease stuff that they're already working on. So at one point in their surveys, they asked about a Persona 5 re-release. And just a month later, they announced Persona 5 Royal, which was a Persona 5 re-release with a ton of extra content. Anyway, for the first time ever, they are mentioning Xbox in their consumer surveys. And as we see the relationship between Xbox and Sega Build and Sega owns ATLUS, it starts to put some of, once again, the phrase of this video, the writing on the wall. I mean, they're asking about ports, remasters, so on and so forth in this survey. Now, this is where speculation kicks in a bit, but I think it's well-founded speculation. Take a look at this article here, where ATLUS is planning a Persona 25th anniversary project, where they are saying it will be something that will commemorate Persona properly. And now, I've had my speculation about maybe a Persona 3 remake. You know, they have the assets made for this clearly based off the dancing games. I think out of all of the modern Persona titles, Persona 3 is aged somewhat poorly, although I love so many aspects of it. I think it would do super well nowadays if people got a second chance to try it out with more modernized mechanics. And so with all of that in mind, I do think that what is also equally likely is to commemorate Persona, get more people to experience it. Not, hey, this is a cool thing we're announcing for Persona for PC as well as PlayStation, but you can get Persona on Xbox now. So all I'm saying is, the stars are aligning here. That's how I personally view it. But anyway, I think this survey, the Persona project, the first time mentioning of Xbox, they're checking interest at the very least. And given, once again, what they did with Persona 5 Royal, I don't know. It all seems a little fishy to me.
But anyway, the writing is on the wall that Xbox is attacking the third party in a very specific way, which is not to say, hey, let's get everything exclusive. That's not to say that, hey, Xbox won't do something exclusive with Sega. I think eventually they will. I think their partnership's growing, it's becoming stronger, and they know that this is something they need to address. But What happens is when you have 23 first-party studios, and if they can have major releases every single quarter, which is possible now because of how many studios they have and the rotation that they're in, they can have major first-party releases every single quarter for the future. And if you're doing that, plus making it an equal footing when it comes to third-party games like Persona, typically exclusive to PlayStation, if you have a multi-platform release now with Persona 6, we'll say, that is a very big deal. It won't be the number one selling thing for Xbox. No, but the idea is that your first party brings them in, Game Pass brings them in, and then they can still experience those other third-party games on your platform, so you continue to stick with Xbox. Now, let's take a look at another partnership that Microsoft is honing in on, and one that, once again, punctuates where they are trending as a company, which is trying to adjust for things in Japan. So we talked a little bit about Square Enix the other day on the channel when Outriders was confirmed to come to Game Pass. Day one, by the way, which is so exciting that we can get these big brand new games day one on Game Pass if you're already a subscriber. And even if you're not, paying that money for Game Pass is less than that you'd pay already for Outriders. By the way, for those who are new, didn't hear any of that news, it's console-only Game Pass. So if you have PC, just know that it's not going to be part of that package. Anyway, when it comes to Square Enix, there is one major game that is coming to Xbox in just about a week, and it's one that I've seen very minimal chatter on, which blows my mind. This game sold over 2 million copies. It's one of my favorite games on the Nintendo Switch, and it was ported to PC, and that is Octopath Traveler. Same thing I said with Persona 4 Golden. Ladies and gentlemen, like, I'm not just saying this for my own health. Persona 4 Golden, let's draw the parallels. Persona 4 Golden, PlayStation Vita, ported to PC, will eventually come to Xbox. Now, on the other side of the fence, Nintendo Switch, Octopath Traveler, brought to PC, it's now coming to Xbox. It's going to happen. So, Persona aside, here's the more important part of the conversation. Xbox got a JRPG before PlayStation. That is not, I don't want to say crazy, I don't want to be hyperbolic. That's very rare, though. That's the first time we've seen this happen in a very long time. Very long time. And in fact, the fact that it's not happening on an exclusive basis, I think, is speaking to where Xbox is at and how they will continue to attack that third party. And of course, sign exclusive deals with publishers, but they will continue to make sure PlayStation does not have these little titles like this that build up and mount up, where you can stay engaged in an Xbox. I mean, that's a huge thing. I know not everyone's big on Octopath. I think it's a phenomenal, classic JRPG built in Unreal Engine 4. Huge inspiration for a game I would love to make one day. I mean, I adore Octopath Traveler from top to bottom. It's got flaws, but it's a really good game. If you haven't played it, give it a look, especially if it's on Game Pass. No excuse, but not to get distracted here. Xbox got a JRPG before PlayStation, and hopefully for Xbox's fans, this is indicative of things to come. I think, once again, with the writing on the wall with Sega, you're going to see Persona get pulled off of PlayStation only and end up being on Xbox as well. And if they just did a big drop saying, hey, here's Persona 3, 4, 5 Royal, oh my God, I would lose it. That's the thing. The key here is Game Pass. Game Pass, as Sega has said, is key to exposure. And these are series like Persona's ramping up in popularity. A lot of people are familiar with Persona and love Persona, but even more so will learn about it and learn to love it now if it comes to Game Pass. That's the type of game that will benefit from the exposure aspect of Game Pass 100%. And you bet your butt I would buy that game, by the way, just to support them. Simply put, I think that, once again, not to sound like a broken record, the writing is on the wall. There is clearly change happening, and we're seeing Xbox behave differently, and them snagging a JRPG first before PlayStation, a game that I would say looked synonymous with PlayStation and the type of games they release. And then on top of that, Sega's continued appreciation of Xbox and their multiple moves that are interacting with Xbox. I'm not speaking on an acquisition, but things are changing, and you will likely see maybe third-party exclusivity, and you will continue to see a evening of the playing field for sure. So just a bit of a discussion video. This was a topic I thought would be very interesting because I know a lot of people are looking into the future, what's next for them, and this is what I think they're going to do. I imagine they'll make another studio acquisition, whatever that will be, who knows, but I do think more than likely when it comes to the Japan side of things, maybe they'll work on a third-party exclusive basis and just continue that work. But those are just some of my thoughts that I wanted to float out there to the internet, so I leave it in your hands now. What do you think of all this? Let me know in the comments down below. Other than that, Follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. Big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the hell out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.